Hey everyone, it's Allie and welcome to my channel, and today I'm super excited to share with you all the books that I want to read during the month of November. Alright, so I am super eager to dive into all these books that I've picked out for the next month. I feel like for the most part, they fit the November vibe. I did slide one lighter read into the mix just to break up all of the dark academia and thrillers. But yeah, I did pick out 8 books for this month. A lot of times I like to pick out 10, but there is one book that is quite thick, as you saw from the thumbnail. And so let's just go ahead and start off with that one because it is actually a book that I talked about during my fall TBR video. And that book is Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Nurel. Yeah, this book is 1,000 pages, but that's about how many pages the last Cormoran Strike novel I read was. And if you've been following my channel since last summer, like July, you know that I've been reading one Cormoran Strike detective novel every month since then. And they've kind of just gotten bigger and bigger, and I was fully prepared to just finish the 7 books that I have in the series by December. But because I wanted to read this book this month, and the next Cormoran Strike novel is also 1,000 pages, I decided to put that series on hold. So if you're tired of hearing about that one, we're getting a break. But yeah, this book looks like a monster, and I have read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and I found it to be a very interesting read. I was engaged throughout. It was definitely confusing at times, so hopefully this one will not be that confusing. But I really do like Susanna Clarke's writing style, so I'm hoping that this book just grips me from the beginning and I get through this in like a week or so. This says, at the dawn of the 19th century, most people believe magic to be long dead in England until the reclusive Mr. Nurel reveals his powers and becomes a celebrity overnight. Yet he's challenged by the emergence of another magician, the brilliant novice Jonathan Strange, who is young, charismatic, and daring, the very opposite of Nurel. The two join forces in the war against France, but Strange is increasingly drawn to the wildest, most perilous forms of magic, straining his partnership with Nurel and putting at risk everything he holds dear. So this kind of gives me the Prestige vibes a little bit. If you haven't seen that movie, oh my goodness, you have to watch that during the month of November. It's one of my favorite movies of all time with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. And that movie follows like fake magicians. This seems like it's more fantastical kind of magic. But yeah, similar energy. I'll let you know what I think about that when I finish this book. But this book has been on my radar for years. Piranesi was absolutely a favorite for me. So even though I know this is going to be a lot and it's going to take some time to get through, really excited to get into it. I feel like over the past couple of years, I kind of subconsciously shied away from some of these thick books just because I wanted to be able to read a lot. I was trying to reach this 100-book goal that I made for myself on Goodreads. But this year, I very much was like, I want to read what I want to read, no matter how long it takes me. So at the end of the year, I'm sure I will have read less books than the previous 2 years, but I think I've actually spent more time reading this year. But let me know if you've read that one, and if it is on your shelf and you're intimidated by it, this is your sign to pick it up this month, and then we can chat about it next month. And now let's get the other intimidating book out of the way. This one I also picked out for my fall TBR, and that is Babel, an Arcane History. I definitely will not be reading these two back to back. I like to kind of break up the heaviness. And this one I have a feeling is going to be harder to get through than Jonathan Strange and Mr. Nurel. And I also am going to allow myself to DNF this book if I'm just really not liking it, because I feel like people either really love this book or really don't love this book. So we'll see how it's going, but this definitely falls into the category of books I've been really wanting to read but have been intimidated by. But I do think I will like this. It is a historical fantasy epic that grapples with student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of language and translation as the dominating tool of the British Empire. This book is set in 1828, which I really like. I like that time period. But it says Robin Swift, who is an orphan, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lavelle. There, Robin trains for years in Latin, Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll in Oxford's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. The tower and its students are the world center for translation and, more importantly, magic. As his studies progress, Robin finds himself caught between Babel and the shadowy Hermes Society, an organization dedicated to stopping imperial expansion. So we'll see how this goes. I feel like it could be really interesting or pretty boring. Yeah, we'll see how this goes, but let me know if you did like this book. Alright, next, the one that is going to be the break for me amongst all the heavy reads and the dark thrillers is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. I was originally going to wait and read this like around Valentine's Day, but I just could not wait to read it. I read the first 2 books in the series, I think in August, and I love them so much more than I expected because I'm just not a huge romance person, not a huge romantasy person, and I'm loving the story so far. I think it's super cute. I like the main characters. I like the guy. And the second book absolutely ended with me wanting to read the third. So I did get this book for my birthday book haul last month and I just wanted to read it right away. So this is, I guess, a lighter dark academia kind of romantasy book. It fits enough for me to read it this month. And then I did also want to be intentional about picking some shorter books to counteract the really thick ones. And so I am going to read Elevation by Stephen King. Last month I did read The Institute, which I absolutely loved, 5 stars. And I read Fairy Tale last year, which was also 5 stars. So I never thought I would be a Stephen King girly, but I am liking his books that are not like super horror. And this one is just like 145 or 150 pages or something like that. So this is one I for sure will be able to just read like in one evening. It says, Castle Rock is a small town where word gets around quickly. That's why Scott Carey wants to confide only in his friend Dr. Bob Ellis about his strange condition. He's losing weight without getting thinner, and the scales register the same whether he's in his clothes or out of them, no matter how heavy they are. Scott also has new neighbors who have opened a fine dining experience in town, although it's an experience being shunned by the locals. Deidre and her wife Missy don't exactly conform to a lifestyle the community approves of, as the town prepares for its annual Thanksgiving run, which I did not even realize this worked out perfectly. Unlikely alliances form, and the mystery of Scott's affliction brings out the best in people who have indulged the worst in themselves and others. So yeah, I guess this is a Thanksgiving book, so this worked out very well. I'll have to read this around Thanksgiving time. But do let me know if you are a Stephen King fan and you've read a lot of his backlist. Which books would you recommend for me who really likes suspenseful thriller books but is not a big fan of like the gory horror? I definitely want to get into his Dark Tower series. I've been kind of collecting them when I find them at thrift stores and library sales and places like that. But I've heard from my father-in-law actually that that would probably be a good series, and I think there's like at least 7 or 8 of those. Okay, but next we have a thriller that was very popular this year. It came out this year in 2024 and I was able to snag it on Book Outlet, so maybe if you're looking for Listen for the Lie as well, you can find it still on Book Outlet. But the books change on there all the time, so don't hold me to that. But yeah, this is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I do believe this was a debut adult book for her. Yes, she wrote several series for young adults, but this is her adult debut. Such a good cover for November, love it. So Lucy and Savvy were the golden girls of their small Texas town, best friends, but Lucy is found wandering the streets one night covered in her best friend Savvy's blood, so everyone naturally thinks she is a murderer. It's been years since that horrible night. Lucy can't remember anything about it, but she's moved to LA and she started a new life. But there's a huge hit podcast that's come out, Listen for the Lie, and the host Ben Owens has decided to investigate Savvy's murder for the show. So Lucy's forced to return to the place she vowed never to set foot in again to solve her friend's murder, even if she is the one who did it. So this sounds really good. It sounds like we're gonna have an unreliable narrator, which I love. And I do like the little trope of having podcasts and thrillers, which I've been seeing more over the last few years. And Stephen King himself actually said this was a world-class whodunit, so it must be good. But let me know, what is your favorite true crime podcast? I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts, honestly, so I don't have a lot to recommend myself, but Crime Junkies is a classic. And while we're on the subject of thrillers, I do have Then She Was Gone by Lisa Joel. My mom actually just gave this to me. She read it and just said I could have it. And you guys know, if you've been watching me for a while, I really, really love Lisa Joel. I think this is going to be my 7th book from her. But this one I think actually was one of her most successful books, so I think this is going to be amazing. It says, no one ever just disappears. Ellie Mack was the perfect daughter, and then she was gone. 10 years after Ellie's disappearance, her mother, Laurel Mack, is trying to put her life back together when she meets an unexpectedly charming man in a cafe. Before she knows it, she's meeting Floyd's daughters, and his youngest, Poppy, takes Laurel's breath away, because the eerily precocious Poppy is the spitting image of Ellie. It says, Then She Was Gone is a gripping and emotional tale of one mother's quest to uncover the clues she failed to recognize and finally discover the truth of what happened to her daughter. Lisa Joel's not let me down yet, so I know this is going to be a good one. Next up, we've got a Kurt Vonnegut book, so this is going to be my classic of the month, I guess. I'm not reading this whole book, I'm just going to read Slaughterhouse-Five. This is a collection of some different stories. My sister recommends Slaughterhouse-Five to me. Kurt Vonnegut, I think, is one of her favorites. Yeah, it looks like this is just going to be maybe like 150 pages or so I guess it is considered a short story or novella. And I failed a little bit in my challenge to myself of reading a classic every month, but I feel like all the classics that I have read, I've really enjoyed, so that's definitely something I want to continue into the new year. And if I do really like Slaughterhouse-Five and I get through it quickly, maybe I'll even read some of these other short stories. But I will be honest, I have no idea what this book is about, and I don't really want to know what it's about, so I'm not going to talk about it here. So look forward to my review of the story. And then last but certainly not least, we have a book that I have been putting off reading for quite a while, and I would definitely say this is a modern classic, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I feel like everyone and their mother has read this book, especially people who are on BookTube and BookTok and who are just readers in general. But I just feel like the last couple years I've pulled this book out to read and I just never got around to it. So this is the year for sure. It says, under the influence of a charismatic classics professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at a New England college discover a way of thought and life a world away from their banal contemporaries. But their search for the transcendent leads them down a dangerous path, beyond human constructs of morality. And this is labeled as a psychological thriller, so I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit fast-paced. And another review does say it was beautifully written, suspenseful from start to finish. So really looking forward to getting into this one. The only other book that I have read by Donna Tartt was The Goldfinch, and I really love that. I definitely like her writing style a lot. But that was everything that I'm hoping to read during the month of November. I definitely think I can get to everything. It's going to be a little bit of a slower month. My husband and I are not going to be traveling north for Thanksgiving, where we're from, because we are going to be going up for several weeks in December. I'm also going to be going on a cruise, so you can look forward to a video where I share everything that I read on my cruise. But I think it's going to be a pretty peaceful, slow month before the craziness of December. But let me know what is on your list, and let me know if you're going to be reading any of the books that I did pick out. If you like this video, please make sure to give me a big thumbs up and subscribe. It really does help my channel out a lot. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.